Hi, welcome to the session for RAD Server Creating a Delphi client. My name is Danny Wind, and in this session we'll create a Delphi client for a key value store that's running in a RAD server. We'll use the TBackEndPoint REST response as well as EMS provider. Let's create a new VCL application as a starting point. You could also create a FireMonkey application if you wanted to go cross-platform, so you could run the same code on Android, iOS or Mac OS X if you want to. Let's save this as a unit for main and save the project as RAD Key Value client. Okay. First things first, the RAD server is already running. I made sure of that, and I'm going to add an EMS provider. And that EMS provider will be connected to the RAD Key Value server that's running in the background. You can actually see the icons in the taskbar for that. It's running on localhost port 8080. Obviously you'd reconfigure that if you deploy it to a IaaS or Apache server in the cloud. For now it's just HTTP. Let's test the connection, and it's okay, it works. Next to the EMS provider connection, we're going to add a backend point, and that backend point will connect to one of the several REST backend points that's implemented in the key value server. The key value resource is the /keyvalue URL. The method will be get, and in this case that will return the entire set of keys for the key value server. Because it's asynchronous, we need to put a REST response on the form, and that REST response will receive the asynchronous request from the backend point. The data received in the REST response will be displayed in a memo, so let's place a button so we can initiate the action to actually request the data from the RAD server, and also place a memo to display the result from the REST response that will send through the backend point. In the button we'll just execute the backend point. That's backend point 1, and then execute. And it's doing execute async in this case, because that's the better option. You could also do a synchronous execute, but that would freeze your user interface while it's actually loading the REST data. So in this case, just execute async and put a procedure parameter in there. That procedure is declared in the form and called when the request is completed. Display list in memory, in memo, and just add the lines to the memo 1. And the lines are available in the REST response. Just like that. Okay, let's test it. Yep, it works. It's displaying the default value of 0, which is the only item in the list. Because it's the only item, let's add some code to add additional items. So we're going to create a button which will put items in the list. So the other one's now a button get, and we'll put a button put here. And the button put will execute a put request in the key value server. The same method is used. We're still using the EMS provider connection because that's just a connection to the EMS server, and we'll post data in the with the button put using a key value pair. The added 1 will be the key, and the added 2 will be the value. So added 1's key and added 2 will be added value. We need a backend point for that, so let's put a backend point there. The put request actually doesn't return any results, but in order to make sure that we can get some results maybe in the future, because we might want to include data as a result of a put request in the body that returned from the HTTP request, we will be placing a REST response and its key value, and then a resource suffix item /key/value, where the bracketized items, the key and value, are parameters, and item is a sub URL. So let's put the REST response here as well and connect that REST response to the backend point. Again, we're not getting any data back. At this point, we're just putting data, so the REST response data is ignored for now. Okay, so backend point 2, execute, and first set the parameters. par by name for the key, as well for the value. Now, because it's RAD server, if you forget to add the parameters, the key and value parameters both, the resource endpoint will not be called, because RAD server actually parses for the availability of the two parameters. So you need to make sure that you set both parameters before calling into the backend point. So if you don't get any results, check your parameters and if it matches the resource suffix in your RAD server. Execute async, and let's make a note here that we added the REST response just for later. Okay. Run it and test it. One item in the list. Let's add another item. And add that and then check, and it's there. So it seems to work, which is nice. Now, adding a value to a key value store just using parameters does have some limitations. So we are going to add a memo and use the body to actually add a value to the key value server. I've made some changes to the key value server to accommodate that. The reason the key value posting using the URL is limited is because, for instance, the URL size in IIS by default is limited in size, but also because the URL doesn't like certain characters like slashes or percentages or dollars. So if you want to use special values or special characters, or if you want to use a larger body of text, you're better off using the REST body instead of using the key value in the URL. Okay, so we're going to do the BackEndPoint here. What I did in the RAD server, if I detect a value with the text body, it will parse the body of the HTTP request instead of using the parameter. And if it's a not body, it will just put the value that's passed in the URL request into the dictionary. So this is a text plain. The REST content types actually in rest.types. So you can view the additional types there as well if you want to. It's just for parsing, that's all. So there's 0 and 1 that's still in there. I'm going to add 1 and then use some text with some special characters. And instead of using the key value, I'm going to put body in there, so the RAD store actually parses the body, and we can now request it using item 1. That works. So how does this code on the RAD server side look like? I'll just show you. So it's the previous version RAD key value server. Remember, you get the source code at the end of the session. So unit data main. And in the put item, there's this little test here. It says if it's body, then parse the bytes. Okay, you can get the downloads from dannywind.nl/CodeRage.